limited. The government's not supposed to try to do everything for everybody that asks. It's supposed to do, it's called the general welfare principle of the Constitution. It actually says general welfare, but it's a principle that government only does what a supermajority of the people can benefit from. So all these special interest things, they need to go.
Good afternoon, Charlotte County. Welcome to the Mega Voice, Make Education Great Again Voice. I'm Karina Schmidt, and I'm on here today with David Kesselring. He's running for Charlotte County Commissioner's position. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Karina? Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show. David, can you tell our listeners just a little bit about why you're running for Charlotte County Commissioners?
Sure. I'll just start out with just a brief little history here. Just to repeat, I'm running for Charlotte County Commission. I'm District 5, but it's a county-wide election, so every Republican will get a vote in the primary for me and actually two others. Hal Daniels is running, and there's Kathy Futch is running as a write-in, but me and Hal are running for commission, and there's a bunch of other people running that we'll talk about a little bit later. But I've been in Charlotte County since '92 and Southwest Florida since 1974. Been here quite a while. I have two small businesses. I have a computer business I've operated for 25 years and a growing window washing business for the last few years. And I've been married to my one and only wife for 23 blessed years. Been speaking before the commissioners regarding wasteful spending and unrestrained government growth for like over 10 years. Now, I've been to at least two meetings where there was 300-400 people there. They were totally ignored. Of course, I'm totally ignored, and most speakers are ignored. We're limited to 3 minutes. There could be 20 or 25 agenda items on an agenda, and you've got 3 minutes for the whole thing. And if you're not a buddy, you get cut off right at 3 minutes.
Let me ask you, what made you become interested suddenly in local politics and made you start going to these meetings? What was it you were seeking answers to?
I was woke up by Ron Paul. This is kind of it won't be too long, but I was asleep like everybody else and just working and didn't have a clue what was going on. And I decided, you know what? Things are wrong here. And I decided to check out all the presidential candidates' websites. And I found nothing on all of them but one. And it was Ron Paul. He actually had comments allowed on his webpage. And I got a Liberty education. I started
So this
learning.
is when? How far back are we going? When
Like
you really became aware of what was at
2008,
stake?
2008.
Okay.
And then I got involved in local politics and I spoke at the commissioner meetings a few times. And actually the beginning was the sewer battle when they wanted to pretty much force sewers on a large portion of Charlotte County, which is unsustainable, unaffordable, and there's a lot of issues with the sewers, but that would take a whole show probably. But that's what got me started. And a group was working to stop that. And boy, they got shot down, and they brought in all these fake experts, and all the people came out and said no, and all these widows were losing their homes, and their property taxes were tripling for people. It was insane.
So let me ask you this, because as you know, I'm running for school board, so I have an education interest in my campaign. But there's education of our children, but there's also education of the general public. Do you feel as if the way the local government is run fails to educate adequately our voters and our, community members about things that's going on behind the scenes?
It's a mix. I'm thinking that so many people have been just driven down that they just don't go anymore because they're not heard. They haven't been heard for years, decades. They haven't been heard, and a lot of them don't come out, and a lot of them don't bother. But the ones that want to, it's hard. Public records have gotten a little better in Charlotte County itself. There's a lot of other agencies around here that you just almost can't get public records, and they overcharge you and they stall you and they will not give you the records. Some of them won't even give you the records. Actually the SOE's office is probably one of the worst on the public records from what I've heard lately.
Mm-hmm. Do
But
you
again,
feel that the job of a commissioner is to educate the public as well about what they're doing? That
absolutely,
they should be doing a better job in reaching out, considering the fact that they are elected officials and it's taxpayers' dollars that are funding their lifestyles, that they're servant to us, or do we owe allegiance to them somehow?
absolutely not. We're the servants. We're the public servants. That's why I think they get paid too much. But basically, I have been doing that for the last 10 years, is trying to educate people, trying to share information about what's going on in there. As a commissioner, I'll probably wind up having to have my own website just to explain to people what's going on. And I'd like to try to explain things so that they're understandable. I hope some people will get involved and start looking at that.
Mm-hmm.
But I will also move to get some more time for people. Their excuse is, what if 100 people show up? Well, that happens once every year or two. Okay. Most of the time, there can be anywhere from 0 to maybe 3 to 5 people speaking. And there's
Mm-hmm.
no reason why they have to cut them to 3 minutes and cut them right at the beginning, and to have armed guards on each side of them ready to walk up on them if they're like 1 second over 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
What's
So you
education?
mentioned Ron Paul just a little bit ago, and he created a very open forum for connecting the elected official with that is him, the elected official with his community, his constituents. Do you find that the commissioners in our county has done that, or is it a an us and them position that they have created?
Well, the public meetings, the main meetings they have are online, which is very helpful. And they
Mm-hmm.
do put the documents, they're kind of hidden. Sometimes the topics, you just don't even know what's in there until you look into the documents, which people really need to do, but it takes a lot of time. And
Right.
that's what the representatives are there to do. We shouldn't have to always watch them. They should be trustworthy. They should be trying to do everything as inexpensively as they can and limited. They should be limiting themselves. We shouldn't have to limit them.
Right.
That's what people should understand before they get into office. It's limited. The government's not supposed to try to do everything for everybody that asks. It's supposed to do, it's called the general welfare principle of the Constitution. It actually says general welfare, but it's a
Mm-hmm.
principle that government only does what a supermajority of the people can benefit from. So all these special interest things, they need to go.
So Ron Paul, he actually allowed people to post comments on his website, and
Here's the
engaging in a
website.
dialogue.
Yes,
You're running against who?
uh, Joe Tiseo.
Okay. Is he the type of person, or does he have a website where he engages directly with his constituents and he takes questions and responds to that on his website?
No,
What kind of elected official is he in
you
your
can
perspective?
you can contact him, and that's one good point about him is he will respond. He probably may not
No, I'm
agree.
not talking about emails. I'm talking about his website. Like if somebody posts a comment, will he engage at that point?
I've never seen that. That doesn't mean he doesn't, though. I don't want to
Okay.
keep something that I
So
don't know.
what are some of the issues with our community that you're concerned with?
Oh gosh, there's plenty, but uh, we start with the waste, right? There's all kinds of waste, and I could bring up a lot of different examples, but I think I'll just start with walkable communities and wasting millions of dollars on sidewalks and also beautification. Okay, because our economy is not doing well. Even though Biden says it's doing great, it is not. People are struggling. They're having to work 2 jobs. Most of the jobs they've created are 12 hours a week. They don't pay anything. You got to work a bunch of jobs. We don't need massive beautification, sidewalks. We don't need a walkable community. This is a retirement community. Okay. We've got loads of sidewalks, and they almost always put them on both sides of the road. Not always. but you'll find some that go out to nowhere, like on 41 and Vermont Road. They go out to nowhere, and these things cost millions and
Mm-hmm.
millions, millions of dollars. There's one
Where do
on
you
Love
think that money would be better spent?
on real infrastructure like roads. And right now they're talking about $1 billion they're going to have to spend for water. So at some point we're going to be short of water. I think roads and water are probably the number one things that government should do. And if they don't have enough for that, they need to not be wasting the money on sidewalks and cornhole and boat races and what else do they do? They do all kinds of events and they
Mm-hmm.
have an economic development community or whatever it's called, economic development. Actually, Sarasota's thinking and they're working hard to get rid of that because it's not the government's job to develop the economy. They need to stay the heck out of the economy and let us develop the economy because that's how we got to where we are. That's how we got to be the most wealthy country on earth. Whenever it was 60, 100 years ago, we were
Mm-hmm.
much wealthy, and then we got the Federal Reserve and started going downhill. And now we're
So, what are some of the things that you could say that Teseo has done, your opponent has done or supported that you would do differently? Where could you make
I
a difference for the
won't,
taxpayers here?
I won't vote for any new sidewalks. I won't vote for any more beautification. That's up to business owners can do that. I'm sure that if they need to. I'm not going to be planting more palm trees on 41. It doesn't cost a lot of money unless they get sick because I just heard they were treating a bunch of those trees that they bought that were expensive, but they fall over and block 41 when a hurricane comes.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Parks. We've got 67 parks. He accused me of wanting to take parks away from people because I don't want any more parks. I think 67 parks and counting is fine. I think the money they waste with economic development and the money they spend should be left with the people. They get grants. They get grants for things for these parks, and there's all kinds of strings and ropes attached. And in the future, we're strapped with all those strings and ropes that cost two, three times what we
What
got
kind
for
of
the.
strings have you seen that has been attached to
Oh, I'll give you
to excuse me?
a good example.
Okay, go ahead.
Sunrise Park. I believe it's right next to Gaines Park, or maybe that's what they purchased originally on Edgewater. They purchased the property for $1.2 million, and they got a grant from the state. I'm guessing it was about half, maybe $600,000. And then in there was stipulations of having to put bocce ball, pickleball, a splash pad. I believe the elevated sidewalks that are going to cost $1 million or more was in there. More bathrooms, more stuff for playgrounds, which of course was 2 to 3 times probably what they got for the grant. And with the housing stuff, it's always crazy. I don't have a specific example, but there's always crazy strings attached to these grants. Not to mention the fact that it's our money. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
more grants they ask for, the bigger the budget of the state, and the bigger the state taxes. It's
Do you think
all
there should be a vote of the people when before something like that is passed, and directly ask the people, "Do you guys want this?"
we
Instead
don't.
of just having the commissioners proceed with plans that the general public might eventually disagree with.
Well, that's where you got the democracy thing. We're not a democracy. They're supposed to be representatives. That's why you need to vote people in that won't do that. But when they do, and the people come out and say no, which they don't come out enough, but when they do say no, they need to figure out something
They need
else.
to listen to the people.
They do. They need to listen
Yes.
to people when.
They are
And
supposed to be representatives, but if they don't listen to the people, then it is a major problem.
let me please qualify that then. We're listening to the people under the guise of constitutional principles of a republic, of a constitutional republic, and under the auspices or the ideas of general welfare. So if people say, we like the color green, so the government needs to go out and paint everybody's house green because we say so, and there's a lot of us, it doesn't matter. But when they're doing something wrong and they say, don't do it, don't do it. You know, you get my point?
Yes, absolutely. Um, what is your position of a local code enforcement?
Yeah.
Pros and cons.
it there's the only pros are they started out, checking people's houses to make sure the electric's okay, the plumbing, the roof won't cave in. That's all good. That's safety issues. But now it's become the same thing that's in the Declaration of Independence. One of their biggest complaints was that King George sent out swarms of officers to harass and find the people. That's what it's become. Let me give you some examples. There's this 4,500, the guy was threatened for $4,500 for a flat tire. And the only reason he got off was because it wasn't fully flat. And maybe we're in a hurry here, so I'll go through them fast. There's the Shallows, they were a family that got blown away by Hurricane Ian. And they purchased some property in Charlotte County. They had their shrimp boat, which is their means of survival, which had been sunk. They raised it, they had it there. They were working on it. They had their camper bus. They put up a nice shed that was probably as good as a FEMA trailer, and they had a porta potty, so they weren't hurting anybody with sewage or anything. And the county sent their strike force out and crushed their shrimp boat. They confiscated their bus, wouldn't let them get anything out. I told you about this before, I think. And they threw, just for kicks, they threw the kid's wheelchair in the garbage. And then they arrested the dad for complaining. They had a family of seven altogether, 5 kids. And basically broke all kinds of laws to enforce a camping ordinance. And it started out with code enforcement. And here's the biggest thing. They code enforce farmers, okay? And I always want to give a kudos to Dave Kalen because he's protected 6 or 7 at least so far farmers in code enforcement court and won. Nobody wins in that court because it's an administrative court. You can't use the Constitution. You can't use law. You can't use case law. Even the opinion of the state attorney doesn't matter in that court. It's all just their rules. And they say it's due process. And it's not, because you have to go out and spend $1,500 or $15,000 for a lawyer to go against this. And here's a little specific example. Have you ever broken down on the road and waited for a tow truck? You ever had to do that?
Yes.
Weren't you glad when you saw them coming?
Well, AAA actually came before.
Not the commission, though. If you're a tow truck driver in Charlotte County, you basically, if they don't like it, you can't even take your tow truck near your house to use the restroom or have lunch.
Right.
There was a tow truck driver in code enforcement, and he said in their hearing, and he said the enforcer would just camp out by his house, wait for him to stop by, take a picture, then they drag him into court, and he'd lose, 3 or 4 hours of work. It's not a POA. This is Charlotte County. Why can't you park your work truck in front of your house? This is the kind of thing, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of examples of this going on, and even the Shallows.
So when you get elected to office, how would you work to change that, to improve the overregulation of people, the overreach of government?
Well, number one, I'll expose it in meetings. Number two, I'll make motions almost every meeting to remove a code or two. I'm going to go through these codes one after the other and start removing these crazy codes that are on here, because that's not what government's here to do. We did not create government to cause us to have to live in fear. We created government to protect our property and protect our lives so that we could go out and work, not to take our jobs away. The opposite.
Or deprive us from the ability to work because they're taking up our time in court. Correct.
And I won't vote for any new codes. We've got a big book that's as big as Black's Law of codes. It's or a copy of War and Peace that people don't know what Black's Law is.
So let's tie it into education a little bit, because our students in high school are supposed to learn about civics. It's now law. And thank God for that, you can say. How do you think, or do you think our schools presently are doing enough in the civics classes to educate the students about these issues that pertain to our local community? This is civics at the local level, really. Teaching kids how a local government works. Do kids in high school in Charlotte County presently learn about what code enforcement is and how our local government operates? What's the function of them and so on?
Absolutely not. The kids are brought in once in a while to one of their regular public meetings, which is pretty much choreographed. They make sure they bring them in there when there's no contentious issues. No, they need to be brought in for field trips to multiple code enforcement meetings. When they hear of something that's contentious, they should give them extra credit to go to those meetings and listen to the people because when you want to really hear what's going on, you listen to the citizens' input. The rest of the stuff has been done at what they call one-on-ones with the county administrator.
Mm-hmm.
Most of it's been discussed behind closed doors. They have a pre-agenda meeting, which is not filmed. They do have some workshops that are filmed, and the last one I went to was kind of revealing. I didn't go there. I watched it online, and that is online. And that's one of the big things that the other commissioner touts is that that's online. But a lot of meetings still aren't, and all the one-on-ones are not online. And usually, even at the workshops, I believe I don't want to say it's choreographed, but it's they behave, I think, a lot better when they're on TV than they would if they weren't. But the kids need to see the more contentious stuff, not just the little smooth stuff. And I think they learn the methodology. They get institutionalized, and they learn maybe how the methods go on how they take all our money, how they use, what methods they use.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that methodology once, back to the sewer thing, one lady was going to get charged $360,000 to hook one house up to sewers. That's how their methodology figured things out. They were going to close 2 churches down because they were going to
Do you
charge them
think
like,
it would be a good idea for civics teachers to use local cases,
yes,
such as the lady that was charged thousands of dollars to put in water and sewage, to use specific cases, real life cases, put that in front of the students, and then discuss in the classroom what exactly is going on here. How is that in accordance with, for example, our Constitution? You can contextualize any law with the Constitution. Is it in agreement? Do you think that would be a good study for them instead of just reading textbooks?
absolutely. That would be absolutely wonderful if they could actually see what was going on. There's actually a website or a YouTube channel that could educate a lot of people and students. It's called Charlotte County's Greatest Hits. And it goes way back. You can see how they pushed the sewers and all the stuff they did back then. And there's all kinds of stuff in there relating to different contentious issues usually.
Do
And
you
if you,
think our civics teachers should be working more towards collaboration with the commissioners, not to cooperate with them and necessarily just further their agenda, but to question them and to hold them accountable?
yes, of course. And until you have some different commissioners, it's going to be all the same thing, though. I mean, I know they bring it, like I say, they do bring in students, but they're just learning how to do the same thing we're doing, which is not working. What we're doing is really, it's screwing up our country, the way things are going. And they're just seeing how it's run and, oh, look, it runs smoothly, but it's not. They may have a big book on how to do something, but then there's the principles. And what matters is the principles that are behind all this stuff. And they say, oh, that's philosophy or something. No, that's what this country was built on, principle. It was built
Mm-hmm.
on the general welfare principle, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, right? The Bill of
Correct.
Rights, all of it. And safety, security, due process, all that stuff is what we were built on, but it's gone. There is no due process. Even the First Amendment around here is gone. Freedom of assembly, almost everything. I could probably list something that violates one of the principles in the Constitution.
So,
We
in
need to,
your perspective, to bring it back to education, because how to run a future country with the education level that we have right now, what could be done to facilitate some relationship or collaboration between students, parents, and educators in respect to local government and how it's currently managed? What could be done so that the knowledge of the next generation is enhanced instead of just, kind of putting the kids on a conveyor belt that where they go through the same motion, but they really don't learn anything?
well, it has to be allowed. And like I was talking about, probably the main thing would be field trips to meetings and maybe letting some citizens speak to civics classes, not just
Why do you
politics.
think our local government or local elected officials would be opposed to such an idea? Isn't the whole purpose of them to educate our community about what they're doing?
If the community knew everything they were doing, they would rise up. And of course, they wouldn't get reelected. and they'd lose their control. It's all about control. It's about control. And the more in the dark people are, the more, and their excuse is nobody shows up. But when they did show up and when they do show up, they're
They're
ignored.
shut down.
Sure, they're ignored. Even in the school board meetings, of course, they ignore. I don't know if I mentioned it to you before, but they had their budget meeting, which the budget is just so far out of control, and it went up so much this year. And the Sun reporter had gotten locked out of the budget meeting. You don't lock the
Do
doors.
you think we should reduce the salary of commissioners,
Yes,
school board members, city managers, superintendents to
yes.
be in accordance with what many have been requesting for a long time, minimum wage? You're a public servant. If you advocate minimum wage, why are you not taking minimum wage yourself? How do you think your opponent would be receptive to an idea of getting, say, $15 an hour for the job that he's doing?
I don't know, but that's one of the things I've been thinking of, but I would have to lobby the state because they don't actually give themselves raises. There's a formula they use that has to do with the population. And I think that
Right, but do you think he would work for $15 an hour?
no, and I couldn't either. No one can afford to live under that. And I don't advocate $15 an hour. I advocate for people going out starting their own business so they can make at least 20 or 25.
Mm-hmm.
But not 15, but much lower than it is. Much
What do
lower.
you think would be a fair compensation for the job that Joe Teseo is doing right now?
Well, you have to take into consideration they might have kids, and I'm thinking maybe 50 to 60. I would take 40 myself. I don't have kids, but
Okay.
maybe they should, I don't know,
Well, I
50.
don't think kids has anything to do. That's their private decision to have children,
Well, I know, but
you know,
girls,
separately. But for the job that they do, what should they get paid and what are they getting paid now? Does the public really realize what they're getting paid?
probably not. It's up to, I didn't even know it was this high. I thought it was still the 67 the last time I heard. It's $87,000 a year plus benefits. And the last public or county administrator, he'd stated at one point that the benefits were 40%. So, the regular people maybe make an average of 36 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That would even be fine. The average salary, that would be great if they did that. I mean,
Right.
I'd live on because you can work they all work part-time. I can work part-time if I need a little more.
So if a commissioner was to get more or less the average of what a lot of jobs pay, desk jobs, that is, with some responsibility, even managers get
Sure,
paid sometimes about $18 an hour. If
sure.
they are to get paid $18 an hour at 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, his salary would be $37,440. Do you think he would accept the position?
Yeah, you can give him $1,000 raise if you want. No,
Okay.
no, but he is a multimillionaire, and
Yeah, he is.
I need something
What
because
do you, how do you, let me ask you this. What is your position on raising property taxes?
uh, property taxes. Okay. Well, right now, just on an offshoot, they're going to raise the sewer and water bills on top of that. But when you raise property tax, basically you're raising taxes more even, and this is something nobody seems to understand, more on renters than owners. And renters are the people that most of the time tend to make the least. And when you raise taxes on the person that's renting to them, they don't get the benefits of Save Our Homes or Homestead or anything else. Therefore, that high tax rate gets passed directly on to the renters. The renters might have to pay $150 more for rent. And tons of people we're on the edge already. They lose their homes. Then the government has to give big swaths of land to developers to build affordable housing to correct the problem that they helped cause, which was high rents. So they're just going in a circle there, trying to get more power over people. But this is something really interesting in the state. I'm not alone on wanting to get rid of property tax altogether, so people are secure in their homes. But there is a bill in the state that they're going to do a study on getting rid of property tax and replacing it with a consumption tax. What that gives you is security in your home, and food is not taxed. Therefore, everybody has the security of having food and shelter.
Mhm.
And we're not investors here. 80% of us probably aren't investors. We didn't buy our home to sell it again. We bought it to
Mhm.
live it. I'm here to
Right.
live, not to sell my home. And so, yeah, so rent, property taxes need to be lowered, but I'd rather see them just gone. And that would work with a consumption tax instead.
So if you were to very briefly describe what do you think you can do better in that position
Okay.
compared to the gentleman that's in the position right now?
When we have a meeting, I will expose anything that's going on that's wrong to start with. And if there's anything right too, of course, but they do that already. It's just the stuff that's wrong. I will not vote in tandem with the rest. I'm not going to be part of this team they have that's them against us. They all just vote they all vote together except once in a great while. The last time one of the commissioners voted against the budget, my opponent just went after him and said, we will never have a budget if you vote against the budget. Well, I'm going to vote against
Do you
budgets
think it's
until
sort of an old boys clubs that we have right now running?
it's for multimillionaire, pretty much investors. They're developers, they're real estate people. There's one engineer, and then we have pretty much a professional politician. Probably get in trouble for saying that, but that's what he is. And they all want to be, they seem to want to be professional politicians because they don't leave. But yeah, again, it's just the investor class.
How
It's
many
a
years has your opponent been in his position? Let's
8 years.
bring that out to the public.
It's 8 years. He's been in there two
Eight
terms
years.
for 12. The others, 12 going on 14. But
Do you
that's,
think they should resign automatically after 8 years, whether there's term limits or not?
well, I know I'm term limiting myself, and I will not be in there more than 2 terms,
Do you think it
period.
would be honorable of them to resign after 8 years?
Absolutely, it would be.
All right.
And that went through this.
How can voters reach you? What's your website and how can they support your campaign?
Well, my website is dk4cc.com. It's really easy. The letters DK, the number 4, CC for Charlotte County.com. dk4cc.com. I have a donate link on the page. My Facebook link is on the page. My email is dave@dk4cc.com. They can get a hold of me there directly as well.
Mm-hmm.
And what I need help with even more than money. Money is important, but this has to be a grassroots effort. There's never going to be enough money to get past these multimillionaires and all their multi-million-dollar funders. We need to get the word out. This is grassroots. People that need to get off their duffs this year because this is the year. There's 11 people running at least, maybe more, and we're not even into qualifying yet. There's grassroots people running for these offices just like they are, just like the voters are. The majority of the voters are just regular folks trying to live their lives, support their families. They don't need to make $1 zillion off investments. They're just working and living. And those people need to get out, not just vote. And one vote is helpful and every vote counts, but they need to go out and get more votes. They need to talk to their neighbors. They need to share. They need to share the email, the website, the Facebook, and we need to get the word out in an affordable manner. And that's what all the people need to do. I'll need signed locations. I need my website shared. And I do need some donations just to get signs to place out and do some other advertising, at least a little bit, because we got to get the word out. Hopefully
I'm
we can get
curious
the word.
about one thing because I think some of our voters, maybe the majority of the voters everywhere, does not realize how much candidates self-fund. Do you believe it should be permissible? Do you think it should be legal for them to self-fund, or should they gather all funding for their campaigns from donors? So do you think they should be allowed to pour 5, 10, 20, 30 million, $30,000 into their own campaign, or should they get everything by donation?
They put more than that in just to scare off candidates, but
Well, it's a loan that they give to their own campaign. So if
yeah,
they pour $30,000, you know,
or
into
more.
their campaign out of their own private funds, should they be allowed to do that, or should they um be allowed to only get donations?
Well, of course, that makes it so that only pretty much multimillionaires and the very rich can ever run for office, basically. Uh,
Exactly.
not big
Exactly.
restrictions, though. I have to think about restricting anything. And basically, if somebody wants to run and they did, there's good people that have a lot of money. Um, and they can look at Elon Musk. What if he ran? He could fund his own campaign. Um, I don't know. There's more bad than good, obviously, in our government, but I don't know about restricting it. I would say more of putting a limit on it, maybe put a limit on it and make people
So
have to
maybe
go
the
out.
limit to self-funding is the same limit that people are able to donate to you, to an individual candidate. So if a candidate can only receive a max of $1,000 from any individual or entity, then
Yeah.
they can only self-fund $1,000 too. They can't pour 10, 20, $30,000 or more into their own campaigns.
Oh, you're
Would that be fair, you think?
talking about matching what they can get in donations.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be reasonable, I would think.
Mm.
But again,
All
when
right.
you
Well,
maybe
we're running out of time here, and I want to thank you so much for coming on my podcast, the Mega Voice, Mega Education. Great again, and good luck to you in your campaign here. Please support David Kesselring in his campaign and share this podcast with your children as well, because it is about educating our children, and education starts at home. It doesn't start in the classroom. David, thank you so much for coming on and talking to me, as I'm also running for school board, because I do believe education starts at home and it comes first, and parents have to take an active role into exposing their children to views such as yours. So thank you so much.
thank you. I was just going to mention you as well. And the people can contact me and I'll be glad to send them a list of everyone that's running this year so they can go out and check all these people out. And we're kind of working together as much as we can. We're not a group. We did not get on as a group. These are all individuals that popped on, but
Mhm.
we're working together as much as we can because it's the people against the establishment this year.
Yeah,
Really.
and also they can certainly contact my website, which is CarinaSchmidtMegaVote.com. If they have any questions about this podcast here, or anything we can do for them in respect to educating their children. So thank you so much for coming on the show, and I look forward to hearing from you in the future as far as how you're progressing. You'll be
Thank you.
welcome back.
Thank you. You have a great day. Thank you so much for giving
Thank you. And thank you so much to Charlotte County and everybody else listening to Mega Voice. That's Make Education Great Again Voice. Education starts at home, and it starts with you and taking care of your kids. I'm Karina Schmidt. We'll see you another day.